In Doctor Who The Halloween Apocalypse, which is Chapter 1 of Flux, the Series 13 story arc, the episode begins with the Doctor and Yaz hanging upside down, handcuffed, and footlocked to a gravity bar hovering over the sickly green fumes of an acid planet, and threatened by the holographic image of a mysterious foe by the name Carvanista, who tells them that the planet is soon to be absorbed by a giant red star, and if they try to escape, his kill discs will finish the job. I'm quite surprised to see how calm and collected the pair are, particularly Yaz, who seems to treat it like a joke, which means, naturally, that I now do. I know that no threat in the episode is to be taken seriously. Carvanista mentions that he is travelling towards the final hours of planet Earth before vanishing and leaving them to die. Despite being initially shocked at the impending doom of the Earth, this is swiftly brushed aside so that Chibnall, who wrote the episode of course, can use this moment to have the Doctor and Yaz bicker about how they got into the predicament in the first place. We learn that the Doctor and Yaz were trying to sneak into Carvanista's operations base, but the Doctor alerted him to their intrusion by accidentally blowing up his droid guards with a substance called Nitro-9. The situation was exacerbated by the Doctor when she suggested escape by air surfing on the very gravity bar that they are now hanging from. And there was some kind of force field somewhere, presumably on Carvanista's ship, which rebooted when they came towards it, resulting in their capture. Finally, when they were captured, the Doctor put them in even more danger by blabbing that there were 2 sets of handcuffs in her pocket. Note, Yaz, the police officer, once again misses out on being the one doing anything remotely related to the police. In the first minute and 22 seconds, we now know everything that led up to this point, delivered through dialogue, rather than just perhaps showing the entire affair unfold in real time. Imagine that. In the search of a dramatic cold open, Chibnall has had to crowbar in exposition that adds very little to the scene that we didn't know already after 40 seconds. The bad guy has them trapped above boiling acid. The timer is running down. Oh, Chibs, you and your timers. And they still don't seem to care. The Doctor says 2 words, Yaz.
Trapezium 7. That high-gravity circus workshop. Who were the top 2 in the class?
So they put themselves upright again, and they hang on for dear life. The kill discs begin firing, and despite being but a metre away, miss every shot. Okay, Star Wars rules, fine. The Doctor pulls out a wire, the gravity bar goes haywire, and they fly through the neon sky, chased by the kill discs. What follows is admittedly a funny, Doctorish scene, but the chaos and rising music detracts from the dialogue significantly. It transpires that the Doctor told Carvanista about the cuffs on purpose, because they're voice activated, so making for an easy escape. The Doctor then tries to release them, though presumably this would have been easier to do while they weren't flying through the air. The sound of whooshing air past their ears and machines whirring interfere with the voice activation technology. Then, conveniently, the kill discs fly into some kind of acid rain cloud. The Doctor and Yaz are separated as the grav bar splits in 2 and they fly through the air like witches. Well, it is Halloween, I suppose. Then, conveniently, the TARDIS appears below, and when the grav bars explode, the 2 characters are thrown into the TARDIS, which is pretty darn lucky, I guess. Even more lucky, then, that there's a bed just made up and waiting to catch them. By the way, there is absolutely no mention as to why this bed is here, and we're actually never told. In fact, it doesn't even come up again, and I'm pretty sure the bed vanishes by the time we go back to the TARDIS in the next scene. So personally, I find this very weird, because the TARDIS has many unseen rooms. Why sleep by the console? Is Jodie sleeping there now? Are they sleeping together? Did the TARDIS make a bed appear just to catch them? What? Just why? Explain. The Doctor remembers Carvanista's words and sets course for the final few hours of planet Earth. What follows is the opening titles, officially Doctor Who Flux, and it's Chapter 1, The Halloween Apocalypse. Think what you will about the title, but at least the story is set at Halloween and includes an apocalypse, unlike previous episodes written by Chris Chibnall, which conveniently forget to include the very thing that's advertised, like, say, a battle or a conundrum. No, I didn't care much for the info dump cold open, which to me encapsulated the very worst of the Chibnall era. The following scene was much better though. It's Liverpool 1820. Jumping back in time like this was a little jarring, but the title sequence break allowed for such a jump without it being too unsettling. And in this scene, Williamson and Mr. Stonehouse are disagreeing over a mining project that's underway. Stonehouse declares that William's plans are eccentric. The work is random. This guy is up to something, likely alien or under the influence of aliens. present day Liverpool now, I thought it would be better to refer to it like that rather than 201 years later, as is shown in the episode. We're introduced to Dan in a pretty good scene, actually. Dan is instantly shown to be likeable. He's pretending to be a tour guide in the Liverpool Museum because of his natural charm and enthusiasm for his home city. He is told not to continue doing these unofficial tours, though, by his love interest, Diane, and that he should stick to his own job. You can tell, though, that Diane likes him and finds him entertaining, despite him making her life difficult, which is probably why they're going for Halloween drinks. The scene is a little awkward, though, and the transition to include the fact that they're going on Halloween drinks was a bit jarring. I felt that it could have been directed a little bit better or edited better. I can't imagine that the director didn't have wider shots to sort of show the space between the characters. The scene contains so many close-ups that I think are awkward and unnecessary. I think it's hindered by the fact that they're not physically integrated. He's not trying to get close. She's not trying to get away or close. They're just stood there looking at each other. I just see smiling faces, and it's weird. I get the purpose of the scene. He's trying to win her over. So maybe he should be trying to turn on the charm a bit more, be physically intimate. Also, a final note on this scene, the late Dan Lewis makes it sound like he's dead.
Don't keep me waiting, you, the late Dan Lewis.
Is he dead? Alright, fan theory time. Dan hangs out in the museum talking about Liverpool because he's literally living history. What was it he said earlier?
Just think of me as a free exhibit, just a little bit livelier than the others.
Exactly. Is Dan going to show up in the tunnels 201 years ago? In 1802? Maybe because of an angel. Time will tell. Boom! The TARDIS is showered with sparks, Jodie and Yaz trying to land. It looks like the TARDIS is sick, perhaps dying, as we can see black goo seeping from the console. But the Doctor either doesn't want to deal with that yet, or wants to keep it a secret from Yaz. Throughout the episode, we're also shown how the doors are replicating, which is also concerning. It's in this scene also where her mind is psychically connected by a remote, mysterious force who seems to know her, and she is shown the following scene. On some desolate blue planet somewhere, there's a man with a spiky blue face, chained and imprisoned within a force field. His two prison guards, the outgoing Encentek and newbie K-Tosks, explain that he has been in prison since the dawn of the universe, or so the story goes. This whole sequence could have been shown in the cold open, as it feels weird to have yet another setup scene so quickly. We're not even 10 minutes into the episode and a whole host of characters and threat has been established. In fact, the whole episode continues like this until the end. Swarm asks Encentek if she's feeling paralysed, but there's no shots that show her trying to break free from his hold, or a moment where she discovers this for herself, and I find that really grating because for that reason, the moment loses impact on the audience. Swarm's transformation and escape is truly shocking, and I love the visuals of the crystal spikes like needles jutting in and out of his skin. The end result is less impressive though. When K-Tosk says,
What have you done?
I was a bit confused, as she'd just seen him escape, and there was no reason to suggest he had done anything else. Actually, I was half expecting this newbie to be revealed as a plant working with Swarm to release him, but alas, I was wrong. This would have been a good way to reveal Swarm's sister, who we meet later, to reduce the number of characters needed to tell what should be a far simpler tale. The following scenes are nicely done and present Dan as kind and caring, someone who thinks of others before himself. In this particular moment, it appears as if he's being watched, but by whom? Swarm? No, it's Carvanista. You know, the other bad guy from the beginning of the episode. Oh yeah, you'd almost forgotten about him. Well, it turns out that he is a member of the Lupari race, and looks like a dog.
What did you just call me?
Carvanista is angered by Dan talking about his mother when resisting to follow orders and traps him in a fizzing blue cell called a stun cube. Finally, 16 minutes into the episode, the Doctor and Yaz arrive on the scene and begin investigating their environment. They're hunting Carvanista and are drawn to Dan's house after detecting non-terrestrial weapon dispersal traces, or something. Anyway, they poke around Dan's flat and discover a blue square, sort of residue from the stun cube. Though it must be said, Dan was trapped laying down, so I feel like it should have been a rectangle. The Doctor finds a laptop and somehow accesses information displaying millions of Lupari ships approaching the Earth. They then come to the conclusion that the laptop is too fancy for Dan. They run out of the house and just in time before it's shrunk. Apparently, a trap left behind by Carvanista to stop them chasing after him. So to me, that says the laptop belonged to Carvanista, the Doctor was drawn to it because of the information already on there, which was used as a ploy to slow them down to trap them. in which case it makes sense. But I wouldn't really call that fancy. I'd say, how has Dan got access to extraterrestrial technology? In the Arctic now, and we're introduced to two new characters who are spooked by the appearance of this disc. Not really sure what it is, or where it came from, or why I should care about either of them. But this one takes care of it, like smashing the family china. We're returned to Dan now, and he's caged and aboard the Carvanista ship. It's here that Dan learns that
There's nothing special about you. You're insignificant, irrelevant, and utterly meaningless.
But despite Carvanista saying so, he's obviously saving him for some special reason, rather than just killing him outright. Yaz challenges the Doctor to ask him why she's chasing Carvanista in the first place. This would mean more to the audience if we'd actually had a chance to see that information play out. You know, the information that was reduced to exposition in Scene 1. But before the Doctor can answer, yet another character is introduced. And yes, you guessed it, they're completely irrelevant in this episode. This is Claire. She's met the Doctor and Yaz before, but they haven't met her. Back in the TARDIS, Yaz shows off her skills as a capable pilot, which I guess Big Finish will have to cover at some point, and the Doctor checks her mind, finally opening up about the psychic connection she experienced earlier in the episode. The Doctor says that it's hard to land on Carvanista's ship because it's surrounded by temporal residue, something that shouldn't be happening. But instead of going straight to Carvanista's ship, we jump back to watch this lady, Claire, who we have yet to meet properly. And we don't really get a chance to here either, because she gets captured by a weeping angel after failing to open and then close her front door in time. Interestingly, she repeats under her breath, "Don't blink," meaning that she has prior experience with the weeping angels. Perhaps we shall see this in an upcoming episode. Operation Outpost Rose now, and this is where I started to lose patience. Yet another character with no bearing on the plot, other than teasing us for his upcoming appearance in a future episode. Okay, that's not too fair actually, and I'll explain why. This is Vinder, and he witnesses what we don't know is called the Flux, a space storm gobbling up planets and tearing through the galaxy. But don't worry about that, because back in the Arctic, Swarm enters the house of these two people we met earlier, and one of them is killed, while the other, it transpires, is actually his sister, Azure, in disguise. Finally, we reach Carvanista's ship. Yaz frees Dan. Meanwhile, the Doctor tries to get information about the division off of Carvanista. We learn that he is one of, if not the only remaining officer she could find. The division, if you don't remember or don't want to remember, comes from the Timeless Children story arc from Series 12, in which we discover that the Doctor had her past erased out of her mind by a group she was working for, a kind of CIA agency working in time. So the Doctor was a member before she had her mind erased and was booted out. That's as simple as I can explain it. Then, more information follows. But this time about Carvanista. We're told that the Lupari are species bound to humanity, though little reason is given as to why. He says that he must save a designated human before the destruction of the Earth, which is why he stole Dan. If you watched my reaction video, I suggested that the Lupari could have been evolved from the dogs on Earth, and have only now invented time travel to be able to intervene in time for the Flux. Otherwise, on the countless occasions of the Earth's destruction, why didn't they show up? Anyway, Carvanista tells the Doctor that the Earth's final hours are here, due to the mysterious Flux. Backing up his point is a scene returning us to Vinder at Outpost Rose, where he escapes in the nick of time from the Flux out of an escape pod. You know, this is yet another scene that could have served as the cold open, setting up the incoming Flux. Once their chat is over, Carvanista rages because Dan has been freed, and a chase ensues. The Doctor, Yaz, and Dan return to the TARDIS.
I do not know about this. And who else does?
Cue the Sontarans. Quite simply the best scene in the entire episode. Exposition delivered through comedy. Character motivated. Fantastic prosthetics. A wonderful lead-in for episode 2, War of the Sontarans. The Doctor traces the Flux to the edge of the solar system and is annoyed because there's nothing there. Of course, Dan enjoys the view, but then a cloister bell sounds, and every Doctor Who fan knows what that means.
It's a warning.
The Flux appears, and the drama ramps up from 10 all the way to 13. But just as I was expecting a cliffhanger, the Doctor is psychic linked with Swarm once more and plunged into a strange alien landscape, perhaps existing entirely in her mind. Swarm teases that they, presumably the Division, wiped every memory of him and the Doctor locked in combat in her past. As a result, he gloats that now he has the upper hand and will take her down once and for all. This scene is genuinely chilling, and I look forward to seeing them dance across space and time together once more. But before we can dwell on that, the Doctor is returned to reality, the TARDIS and the matter at hand. The Flux is heading to Earth. The Doctor desperately enlists the help of Carvanista to save the planet. It's then that Dan remembers his date with Diane, and here she is at the corner of Lark Lane, now controlled by Swarm's sister Azure, made to walk into a terrifying old house, flooded with water. Why Dan couldn't just suggest meeting by Mackey's or Costa, I've no idea. Swarm's sister tells Diane that
we're going to have fun with you.
The Doctor and Carvanista are forming a plan. They get the Lupari fleet to interlock, forming a shield around the Earth, fully encasing and therefore protecting it from the Flux. But here's the thing, I'm not convinced that 7 billion ships, that's one ship per human, would be enough to do the job. Even if there were 7 billion ships the size of mansions, then surely these would not be big enough to encase the Earth. Am I wrong in thinking that? It's surely mental. How big are these ships? Anyway, the Flux is almost ready to devour the TARDIS. The Doctor releases some time vortex energy to attack it, but her efforts fail. We are treated to, or tortured with, depending on your view, every character introduced by this story as the end of the universe approaches. And that is where it ends. I actually mostly enjoyed the episode. There were parts I disliked, sure, but I'm going to withhold judgment until the end of the series. So far, yeah, there's good, there's bad, there's ugly bits. Loads that could be trimmed back and still tell the same story. Is it one of Chibnall's worst episodes? No way, it's actually one of his best. Not the best of the era, sure, but for him personally, it's a lot more enjoyable. And the ideas, hey, let no one tell you that Chibnall doesn't have ideas. No, he does. He just seems to want to, throw them all and the kitchen sink at the screen instead of telling a well thought out, coherent story. So what more can I say? The Flux has come.